Well, hello, good evening to you. Welcome. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live on News about Desawe Kanda, also live on TV Ghana on Facebook, DSTV channel 279, all across the world on 3news.com. Tonight, Minister of Environment, Science, Technology and Innovations, the former Minister, Professor Kwabena Frimpong Boateng, in matters relating to mining. We have the details of that Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, the Shraj report. Stay with us. We'll find out whether it implicates or exonerates the cardiosurgeon. Stay with us on Ghana Tonight. Also, we'll stay a bit more on the alleged murder case in Edum in the Ashanti region, where it is emerging that the accused person, that's the police officer, used a service rifle to commit the alleged crime. We ask what kind of assessment is done before trusting rifles into the hands of our police officers. Stay with us. We'll get into a lot more of that. But we have exclusive detail of this Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, that's the Shraj report, on allegations of whether or not Professor Kwabena Frimpong Boateng is engaged, or his company was engaged in illegal mining. Stay with us. We have the full details of that Shraj report, over 100 pages of it. We've come through it. We'll give you that exclusive detail tonight. But first, connect with us as always. We're very, very interactive. Let's hear from you. The hashtag is Ghana Tonight on Facebook and Twitter. Let's get talking. The Commissioner of the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, Joseph Vutal, will be speaking tonight on this matter. Stay with us. Let's settle for Ghana Briefs. The opposition National Democratic Congress says it will fiercely reject any attempts to prevent a bipartisan probe into allegations made against the president and some named government officials in the Al Jazeera documentary and the report by Professor Kwabena Frimpong Boateng. At a news conference in Accra, National Communications Officer of the party, Sami Jemfi, said members will hit the streets if anyone denies the country justice.
We are demanding justice and we are demanding action. And if they don't give us justice, we will hit the streets, we will go to their homes. Enjoy from Galamsey, Omodia say ni pensio, edikum nipa. Nagana for the yayekum sa.
The prime suspect in the murder of 26-year-old Victoria Dapa, also known as Majua at Edum Kumasi, has told an open court it was not his intention to kill the lady, although he went to demand a refund of 5,000 cedis he had given to the deceased. Inspector Ahmed Chumesi, according to the judicial prosecutor, used his service pistol to commit the alleged crime. 7 physician assistants who were picked up by the Ghana Police Service for picketing at the Health Ministry have been granted bail. The unemployed health workers were demanding financial clearance and postings 5 years after completing school. The Electricity Company of Ghana is collaborating with the Judicial Service to introduce special utility courts to prosecute customers who engage in power theft, including meter tampering, meter bypasses, and indirect connections. Persons who provide information leading to such arrest stand to benefit up to 6% of the cash equivalent of the power illegally consumed. A Ghanaian security analyst resident in South Sudan, Dr. Prosper Addo, tells TV3 News the fragile 72-hour ceasefire agreed between the warring factions has brought relative calm to the country. He wants regional bodies like the African Union to expedite efforts at mediating peace.
About 4 ceasefire, requests, but then they failed. So this happened to be the latest one that appears to be holding. which is a positive development from what we've heard so far.
It's very unprofessional of a minister to personalize an issue such as that. Very unprofessional to drop a name on a matter that was purely about a lawyer asking questions about his client. Heritage happens to be a client to one of the lawyers at my firm, Adam. And Heritage had a prospecting license issued on 25th October 2018, okay, which was to expire October 2021. I believe what the minister is referring to happened after this. I think it was in 2019 or 2020. I can't recollect, but he has the date. They had a mining exploration operating permit issued 18th July 2019. They had a forest entry permit issued 12 November 2018, and also an EPA permit. My lawyer comes to me and says that his client, with all these permits and licenses, goes on site with equipment to do prospecting, and the soldiers have come to seize the equipment. Mm-hmm. Okay? Now, what do you do as a lawyer? The first thing I did was I asked, but are they with your people? Said yes. So I spoke to the. So
you called the soldiers first?
Yes.
Okay.
To ask what really was going on. And then they said that they were acting on the instructions of the minister. So I called the minister for clarification. Clarification in the sense that I have a client who has all the documents or permits and licenses required to do prospecting. And he goes on site, and then soldiers come to basically not just stop them from working, but to seize all the equipment.
Well, this is an interview that Gabi Asare Chidako granted Accra-based City FM and City TV. But you know what? After that interview and a number of reactions from some of the people who have been captured in this report that has been leaked, the presidency has also responded. I'm sure you've seen this. They've labeled the allegations leveled against some top government officials and also relatives of the president in this 36-page document by Professor Kwabena Frimpong Boateng, former Environment, Science and Technology Minister, as hearsay. It says that's the conclusion of the presidency. It says it's hearsay. It was in the press statement released over the weekend. In fact, they say, although serious allegations have been made, there has not been any evidence submitted to prove the allegations. That's the conclusion they make, that no evidence has been submitted. In fact, as a result, they say they are unable to properly investigate the claims. Now, take a look at this. We pulled out aspects of the response from the presidency. It says, indeed, the allegations contained in the document are at best hearsay. It is instructive that since Professor Frimpong Boateng's meeting with the Chief of Staff in March 2021, he has taken no steps nor acted in furtherance of the matters contained in the document. You see, this is it. Now, question is, after submitting the report to the president, as he was demanded to, who was supposed to take action on the details of it? Is it Professor Frimpong Boateng or the president? Because this is part of the statement from the presidency, that he didn't take any action. Here's another aspect. Take a look. It says, it can only be rightly referred to as a catalogue of personal grievances and claims made by Professor Frimpong Boateng intended to respond to some issues he faced as chairperson of the Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining. It goes on to say, the document did not have a transmitter or cover letter, nor indeed an addressee, such as to suggest that it was submitted to the Chief of Staff for action. But Professor Frimpong Boateng is on record to have consistently said that he submitted the copies of this report to the President and the Chief of Staff. So the credibility of the witness is extremely important in a case like this, not just about his word against somebody else's word. This is what Professor Frimpong Boateng also said in response to Gabi Asare-Otudakun, who we just played that interview with City FM and City TV. He said that going over the videos and pictures depicting the monumental environmental degradation in the areas of operation of Mr. Gabi Otridako's clients and seeing his ignorance, I am no longer surprised that Mr. Gabi Otridako has such a pixelated view of the illegal mining landscape in Ghana. This is Professor Frimpong Boateng responding to Gabi Asare-Otudakun. In fact, he continues that, Mr. Otridako, I don't think you have retrograde amnesia, but I still want to refresh your memory about the destruction of the environment that has been perpetrated by your client over the years with the accompanying videos and pictures from Diaso Forest and Upper Prama. So keep these two in mind. This is the Diaso Forest and the Upper Prama. But is it really true that Professor Frimpong Boateng did not provide evidence in the report that he submitted to the presidency? Well, here's what Professor Frimpong Boateng said. In fact, he attached copies of pictures and videos he submitted to the presidency when he responded to Gabi Otridako. I have a few of them. I'm going to show it to you, okay? This is it, right? This is the pictures from the two forests or the two areas that he mentioned, Diaso and Upper Prama. These are pictures, he says, are mining areas, the environmental degradation that he indicates or alleges that companies that Gabi Asare-Otudakun was providing legal services for have done to the environment. Take a look at this critically. There's another one. There are about 13 pictures. Take a look at this one. Look at that. Okay? And then there is this one too. Look at that. And then there is this one. Okay? Then there is the next one. Okay? Quite a lot of them, right? And to be honest, we cannot show everything. But all the 13 pictures you can find on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. You see the details of this. But it creates a lot of concern and worry. If you look at the extent of environmental degradation, what we've seen so far, as these things have been playing out. That is why this issue cannot be left to the back and forth that we are seeing. Some have called for an independent commission of inquiry. Others want a parliamentary probe. Well, guess what? The Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice has been petitioned on this matter. We have the Commissioner of Shraj speaking to us tonight. Stay with us. The Ghanaian people deserve answers to this. But coming up right after this quick break, we have that exclusive report on the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, Shraj, on whether or not Professor Kwabena Frimpong Boateng has ever engaged in illegal mining. There is a letter making the rounds on social media with the name of his company on it. We have some exclusive detail. We have the over 100-page Shraj report on this. When Shraj was petitioned by a Ghanaian, we have the name and what exactly Professor Frimpong Boateng's company has anything to do with mining in this country. Stay with me. It's an exclusive detail. We'll be back shortly. Going to demonstrate to you the superior properties of Flamingo paint as compared to other paint brands on the market. We take equal quantities of Flamingo paint and this ordinary paint. We then dilute them with water. And now let the test begin. The gentleman on the left is going to apply the ordinary paint, and the gentleman on my right will use the Flamingo superior paint. As you can clearly see, Flamingo has the obvious better hiding. Furthermore, Flamingo has painted a much larger area. You know, one bucket of Flamingo paint is equal to several buckets of any other paint brand on the market. Flamingo paint is made with superior formulation to give superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage. Flamingo paint, simply superior.
At long last, Blue Jays Vodka makes a market. Blue Jays Vodka makes Numbi a fine.
This look, the guys are chilling with Blue Jays Vodka mix. Wow!
Numbi a tasty.
Can we join you guys? We are all single. Yeah. I'm fine.
Blue Jays Vodka mix and we are dead. Taste me a kama. Enjoy the unique taste of Blue Jays Vodka mix. Blue Jays Vodka mix Numbi a fine.
Blue Jays Vodka mix. Blue Jays Vodka mix.
Numuni nyansem won ton mani pa woni mfie don wotwe. Ensesa apemfo no.
Last year was massive. This year, it will be the bomb. Tour du Ghana, the ultimate cycling event in the sports calendar, happening on the 20th and 21st of May 2023. Confirm your participation. Registration fee is 200 Ghana cedis for single riders, while 100 Ghana cedis goes for clubs with 10 riders or more. Your registration comes with personal accident cover, accommodation, feeding, and transportation. Start point of the tour is from the West Hills Mall, SCC, to the Takrady Mall, and from Takrady to the Cape Coast Chapel Square. For more details, contact 0244 893758 or 0546 063 747. Tour du Ghana, happening on the 20th and 21st of May 2023. Be part of the excitement.
3FM Tour du Ghana is brought to you by Super Yogo.
I hit my wife and she fainted, and since that day I met my rock bottom. So that was when I realized that I may end up in a prison.
It is the infamous white powder, dreaded by law enforcement, loved by its users.
I wasn't getting high from the marijuana anymore, so a friend of mine introduced me to crack cocaine and heroin.
For many though, it is a nightmare. There is a rise in abuse.
The abuse of cocaine has risen so much as compared to the early 90s. So it is very dangerous.
And with it, an increase in the deaths of addicts.
People died and we don't know where they come from.
Experts say the use and abuse of cocaine is increasing in Ghana. So what does this mean for the next generation? Godwin Asedeba meets those using it, those ravaged by it, those attempting to recover from it.
Oh, divine Master, grant that I may not so much sin.
And those working to ensure that cocaine does not destroy an entire generation.
Married to Cocaine airs on Wednesday, April 26 on TV3, TV3 Ghana across social media and 3news.com.
your son involved in?
He is not.
What is he involved in with respect to mining?
He is not involved in anything, and the world will get to know very soon.
There are calls for you to resign. Will you resign?
For what purpose?
They say you are failed and you are neck deep in it, allegedly. Will you resign?
No, I've told you. I mean, you're asking me about what you've done so far, and I've given you a run out. Do you think that with this assessment I should resign?
Prof, is your son involved in?
He is not.
What is he involved in with respect to mining?
He is not involved in anything, and the world will get to know very soon.
There are calls for you to resign. Will you resign?
For what purpose?
They say you are failed and you are neck deep in it, allegedly. Will you resign?
No, I've told you. I mean, you're asking me about what you've done so far, and I've given you a run out. Do you think that with this assessment I should resign?
Well, this was an interview some 3 years ago. The man you heard asking the question is my colleague Komla Kluche. When Professor Frimpong Boateng was in Parliament to answer a few questions, guess what? He put those questions to him about the involvement of his son in illegal mining. You heard the professor's response. Now, there's this letter that's making the rounds on social media. Take a look at this. If you haven't seen it, this is it. Application to take 2 of the 5 concessions lot. This is the address to the Chief Executive Officer, Minerals Commission. It's dated 20th November 2014. Take note of the date, 20th November 2014. And the stamp of the Minerals Commission is there. The letter reads, I represent Symphony Limited, and take note of this company's name, Symphony Limited. Our company has 5 concession lots in the Japre Chrome area of the Bono Ahafo region. Symphony is facing a few challenges, the most prominent being the withdrawal of 2 partners from our operations due to prevailing global economic difficulties. Because of this and other reasons, we are compelled to shut off 3 of our concessions. We intend to maintain only the Babia Raneha and also Adumesu concessions. Follows. The ones we are releasing to the Minerals Commission are the Jape Chrome, Iwinem, and the Asiri lots. So we're giving 5 concessions. They are applying to take 2. On behalf of Symphony Limited, I humbly request that you effect the necessary changes. I hope this request will meet your kindness consideration. I'm available for further discussion if necessary. Thank you. And take note of who signed this. This is Kwabena Frimpong Boateng, Director, Symphony Limited. This is Professor Kwabena Frimpong Boateng there. Okay? So, how is this Symphony Limited related to Professor Kwabena Frimpong Boateng? And how did they end up asking for 2 of 5 concession lots? Guess what? We have the documents. We have the information for you. Stay with me and follow us quite closely. Dennis Wadam is my colleague. We have a copy of the over 100 pages of the Shraj report on this particular issue. Dennis, thank you so much for joining me in studio. Now, just to establish, let our viewers know that we have the full document, correct?
Yeah, we have the full document.
It's the full document of the Shraj report. Okay, great stuff. There's how many pages do we have in there?
117 pages.
117 pages.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Now, let's start from this point. This Symphony Limited, how is it related to Professor Frimpong Boateng?
Well, so by the time we are done with the analysis, this whole document will make sense.
Super.
Because it had been a subject of investigation long before today, a matter that had come before the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice as far back as 2019 on allegations that were leveled against Professor Kwabena Frimpong Boateng, that he had abused his office and also that he had caused financial loss to the state. So this was brought by somebody who described himself as a citizen of Ghana.
A citizen of Ghana.
But when he appeared before the commission, he said he was a businessman who took particular interest in illegal mining activities and then decided to pursue the matter until he discovered this particular company, Symphony Limited. So the issue was brought before Siraj.
I see.
Quite a number of issues and allegations made against Prof.
So what's the name of this petitioner?
The petitioner's name is Arnold Agbo.
I see.
Agbodu.
Arnold Agbodu.
Yes.
Great stuff. So what are the issues that the petition tried to look into?
Well, so the first issue that the petitioner wanted Siraj to look into was the fact that whether the granting of prospecting licenses to Symphony Limited in Japachrome areas, namely Minim, Esiri, Japachrome, Bebiara, Niha, and then Adomeso, and that if any is to contrary to the stated objects of the company. So let's establish this.
Right.
So this was the case of the petitioner or the complainant. The complainant says that he had discovered that Professor Frimpong Boateng had 5 concessions registered under that company called Symphony Limited, and that he had held those 5 concessions for a very long time. At a point, he had given up on 3 of them, but he was still holding on to them so that the state could not reassign them to somebody else.
I see.
The contention of this petitioner was that while Prof was holding on to this particular, those concessions, some other Ghanaians who also wanted to get those concessions were not given the opportunity to get into that space.
Right.
And that's while Prof was holding on to those concessions, he was not paying the mineral rights fee as he was supposed to pay.
I see.
And that for the fact that the Minerals Commission could not reassign them because Prof allegedly did not let them go, the state was losing money. So that's where he makes the case of causing financial loss to the state. Now, he says that by virtue of Prof then being the Minister of Environment, Science, Innovation and Technology, he perhaps may have used his influence to be able to hold on to those concessions.
Right.
He goes on to make the case that an agency like EPA, whose permit is critical in getting permits and licenses to either prospect or to go into mining, Prof perhaps may have also used influence to secure those permits. And that was the abuse of office bid.
Right.
So in all, the Siraj had to hear from the complainant, who made his case strongly and insisted that he believed in the truth of whatever he put before the committee, the commission. Thereafter, they also heard from Prof himself through his lawyers. They heard from the son of Prof, Frimpong Boateng.
Okay, why is his son involved in this matter, and why was he even questioned by Siraj in the first place?
Well, so the petitioner himself admits that this company, Symphony, was established as far back as 1990.
Indeed.
And that at the time, the subscribers of the company were Prof himself and then his wife.
Okay, so establish this. So this company, Symphony, belongs to Professor Frimpong Boateng and his wife.
Yes.
Formed as far back as 1990.
Yes.
How did they get into mining?
And it's important to add that at the time this company was incorporated, the authorized business of the company were general merchants. They were trading as importers and exporters of general goods. They were manufacturers and then representatives, and then they are also farmers. Along the line, the petitioner also raised the issue of how they got into mining.
Great stuff.
But that will also be answered. So like we said, company was established in 1990. Along the line, the petitioner also makes the case that some shares were transferred to another person.
Okay.
From both Prof and then his wife, who would later learn that those shares were transferred to their son. And that's how come the son came into the picture. The son who would later become the CEO of Symphony Limited.
I see. So it appears that that's how the son is related to this company, and how come his son was actually even mentioned in this whole allegation of what, being involved in Galamsey, that question that Komla Kluche put to him that he responded 3 years ago. These are some of the issues as you've run through.
So let's take it at a time.
Great stuff.
So now, having seen all of these things, now Siraj begins to set down the issues for determination. The first issue was to answer the question whether the grant of prospecting licenses to Symphony Limited in Japachrome areas, namely Yunim, Esri, Japachrome, Bebiara, Niha, and Adomisu, if any. So that was first to establish if those concessions were indeed assigned to Symphony Limited, and if that was done in contrary to the objects of the company. Mind you, when I started, I mentioned that the objects of the company as at 1990 were manufacturing and other things, but mining.
True.
So the commission had to establish that. There was also the issue of whether the respondent company is holding on to 5. Now, respondent here will refer to Professor Frimpong Boateng. So anytime we mention respondent, we're referring to him.
I see.
That the respondent company is holding on to 5 mining concessions, despite indicating that it is no longer interested in 3 mining concessions.
Right.
Now, the next one was to answer the question whether the respondent engaged in corruption or abuse of power by having his company holding on to 5 mining concessions, despite the company's failure or refusal to pay the state the necessary annual mineral rights fee. There was also the question of whether the respondent had caused financial loss to the state owing to his company's refusal or failure to pay up statutory annual mineral rights.
Interesting.
Issue number 5, whether the respondent put himself in a conflict of interest situation when the EPA granted his company a permit for mineral exploration. And 6, whether the respondent put himself in a conflict of interest position while he was chairman of the Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining, which regulated activities of illegal mining, and at the same time a shareholder and a director of a company that holds 2 mining concessions. Mind you, it was the allegation of the petitioner that because Prof was the chair of this particular committee, the task force did not visit locations where his concessions were.
I see.
And he makes the case that, the petitioner makes the case that it's because Prof was in that position, he deliberately directed the task force not to go into those areas. But we'll later find out that, in fact, there was no even mining in those areas, and there was no reason for the task force to even go
there.
But so there was a last issue, whether the respondent had declared his interest in Symphony Limited in his asset declaration form in accordance with law. So in all, Sraj had to look at 7 issues, some on abuse of office, some about conflict of interest, and others having to do with whether or not he declared all his assets with respect to Symphony Limited.
Fantastic point. So our viewers should follow us closely. You know what? We need to establish the issues that were first even sent to Sraj, so that you know how Sraj concluded, because the conclusions of Sraj is pretty interesting, so that you understand the basis of this letter that's even making the rounds on social media, whether or not Professor Frimpong Boateng was at any point involved in, or his company involved in illegal mining. What we establish is that, yes, the Symphony belongs to him, registered in the name of him and his wife. His son eventually becomes a shareholder after a process, which was indeed, that we checked with the Registrar General's Department. We got to know that, yes, the admission or addition of mining to Symphony was actually approved by the Registrar General's Department. Yes. So they did not, Professor Boateng and the wife did not add mining to the Symphony's whole profile.
At least per the report we have.
Per the report we have, without the knowledge of the Registrar General's Department. The report by Sraj says that, yes, Registrar General's Department was indeed alerted that the profile of the company was also going to now have mining added to it.
Yes.
Established. Great. Now, what's the next issue? Now, I want us to just establish how Sraj concluded in terms of the investigations into all these issues that the petitioner sent to them. Let's find out.
I must say that Sraj did a rigorous job on this, because when you look at the number of documents they've had to look at and the institutions that they had to consult to get through to this matter, perhaps is the reason why this matter had to span all the way from 2019 to 2023. The report was released on the 9th of March 2023. That's just last
9th
month.
March 2023.
Yes.
I see. So this is fresh off the shelves of Sraj.
Yes.
Great. Interesting, sir. I wonder how you got that report, by the way. But anyway, but these are the summaries of the findings, right? In there. Tell us a bit more into this one.
So yes, with the findings, basically it came to light that Symphony Limited was not holding on to 5 concessions, as was alleged by the petitioner, and that only 2 concessions were held by the company as of the time that the complaint was made. It also came to light that the respondent did not engage in any act of corruption or abuse of power by having his company to hold on to the concessions as alleged, and that the failure by Symphony to pay the state annual mineral rights. They will also make some findings with respect to this one later.
So it's interesting. So Dennis, it means that SRAG established that Professor Frimpong Boateng's company is not holding on to 5 concessions, but only the 2. And then also, he did not engage in any act of corruption or abuse. This is SRAG talking, right?
Yes.
I see.
And specifically, what they said was that, so after all the analysis, they came to the conclusion that Symphony Limited was incorporated in February 1990 and commenced business in the same period. That at the date of its incorporation, the nature of business of Symphony was general merchants trading as exporters and importers of general goods, manufacturing representatives, and farming. That Symphony subsequently passed a special resolution on the 24th of March 2009 to amend its regulations to include mining. On the basis of the aforementioned, the Commission finds as fact that the granting of prospecting licenses to Symphony Limited was not contrary to its stated objective.
I see. So that is the SRAG report, that indeed it was not contrary to the stated objectives of Professor Frimpong Boateng's company to engage in mining.
On the matter of whether the respondent company is holding on to all the 5 mining concessions, the report says that there's overwhelming evidence which points to the fact that Symphony Limited is not in control of the 3 other concessions. First, in its letter to the Commission dated 23rd June 2020, the Minerals Commission indicated that through Symphony Limited, though Symphony Limited applied for prospecting licenses for the impugned 3 concessions of Asere, Jepachrome, and Munim, it failed to follow through and eventually gave up on them now Alfred know the dates, on the 20th day of November 2014. Now, when you refer to the letter that we first showed, that letter was dated.
Okay, so this is the letter you're talking about.
Yes.
This was dated on the 20th of November 2014.
So it's around the same time where the company wrote to the Commission to indicate that they were only sticking to the 2 concessions and they were giving up the 3 concessions.
Fantastic.
That reflects in this report. And that the Minerals Commission also stated in a letter which has been attached here that Symphony wrote a letter to it to discontinue its interests in the 3 mining concessions. So all of that is stated in this particular report. So the letter has been circulated, but what is contained in the SRAG report is the response from the Minerals Commission to acknowledge receipt of this letter and indeed to confirm that they were no longer interested in the other 3 concessions.
I see. So as to how Professor Frimpong Boateng's son became a shareholder in this company, it was because what? He was interested in mining.
Yes.
He was interested in mining.
Yes.
And that's how come they even went through this whole process of what? Getting the mining company or getting mining to be part of this symphony.
So according to the report, after the national service of Prof. San, who is in the person of Jojo, after his service, he expressed interest in going into the mining industry.
See, so we understand he did his national service in a mining company in this country. Let's not name the mining company.
Sure, but he expressed interest in going into the mining.
He expressed interest into mining.
Yes.
Okay.
So then he wanted to get investors into that particular space.
Okay.
He wanted to set up a company, but upon the advice of his parents, they said he could just take the existing Symphony Limited, make the necessary amendments, and get all the necessary documents so that he could start with that process. And that's how come his son came into the picture. It was at that time that Prof and his wife decided to transfer some of their shares in the company to him, and he became a majority shareholder and then started to run the company.
I see. So all this was done legitimately with all the
at least by the reports we have and the findings that SRAG came out with. Nothing untoward had been done in that regard, except to say there's a part that talks about the mineral rights payment.
Okay.
Now, one of the reasons mining has not been done in that space per the report is because at the time they wanted to do the prospecting, according to what we have in this report, there were some conflicts around the area.
Okay.
And in fact, there was an exhibit, or let me say there was a document which was tendered before the commission to indeed show that there was conflict in the area and there was curfew in there for some time.
I see.
Prof makes it the case that when he wanted to go into the concession, the community people resisted.
Okay.
There were fights in there, so he could not even go there. And that is the reason he hasn't been able to pay the mineral rights fee.
Oh, right.
Because he was literally not doing any business there.
In fact.
And at a point, he would say that for him, when he was declaring his assets, he did not deem that to be an asset because for him, it was a liability on him.
I see. So this is the summary of the key findings of the Shraj report, right?
Yes.
Number 6. It says there is no mining activity going on at the place where the concessions are situated.
Yes. So that was the finding of it.
Okay. So that explains why the mining rights were not paid.
That explains why he could not pay. And then that also explains why the commission says that it would not have been possible for the task force to go to a place where no mining activity was ongoing.
I see. Now, the issue of the conflict of interest, let's clear that. And let's hear from the commissioner of the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice. We're not going to just stick to this and Dennis and I doing an analysis. We want to hear from Joseph Whittal himself, okay? Stay with me. What's the issue of the conflict of interest, Dennis, in this report?
Okay, so on the matter of conflict of interest, I would want to get the specific part for you and just read strictly to what the committee, but they cleared him of any conflict of interest issue. But let me get that really quickly.
Fantastic. Great. And that's what you see on the screen. Then while I read it, Dennis will go to the point. It said the respondent did not put himself in a conflict of interest position when the task force of the Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining, of which he was the chairman, failed to visit the concession in which respondent has an interest simply because there was no mining activity. I think this is the issue that you mentioned earlier. The summary point 8 says the respondent did not fully declare his interest in Symphony Limited in his asset declaration form, but the failure to do so is not fatal.
Okay, so on the specific matter of conflict of interest, and this was on the back of allegations that because Prof was in charge of the Ministry of Environment and the EPA is under the Ministry of Environment, he may have used his influence to get the permits. The commission says that the commission therefore finds that to the extent that the respondent, who is Prof in this picture, was not a part of the governing board of the EPA, which granted the environmental permits to Symphony Limited, he did not put himself in a position where his personal interest conflicted or was likely to conflict with the performance of the functions of his office. More specifically, the respondent did not promote a private interest for himself in the grant of the Symphony Limited of the environmental permits. He was not even in position to do so. It will also be far-fetched to imagine that the promotion of the private interest resulted or appeared to have the potential to result in the interference of the objective exercise of the respondent duties or an improper benefit or advantage. The respondent too did not take any action that involved dealing with himself in a private capacity or which conferred a benefit on him in the grant of the permit. So essentially, he's been cleared of the allegations of conflict of interest with respect to the grant of the environmental permit by the EPA.
So, you know what? Let's do this. Beyond the details we've given, we just wanted to establish the basis for this conversation for our viewers to understand every step of the way why this is extremely important, that when all these things come up, we need to understand the basis so that the calls for investigations into these happenings we've seen over the last few days gone by after this report was released is not muddied by some of these things. But let's get onto the telephone. Joseph Whittal is Commissioner for the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice. Let's confirm a few things. So Whittal, first of all, did you receive, just for the benefit of authenticity, did you receive any petition about Professor Kwabena Frimpong Boateng allegedly being involved in illegal mining?
What I know is that the Commission investigated a case on allegations of illegal mining against Prof. Frimpong Boateng, which we have since, that was as far back as 2019, 2020, thereabouts.
Okay.
But we have since completed investigations and issued a report. And that report has been served on the parties.
Now, did your investigations, we've been running through the details of a report, the Shraj report, but you are the commissioner. Did your investigations clear Professor Frimpong Boateng of any wrongdoing or on these allegations of being involved in illegal mining?
Your question is interesting. We investigated allegations made against Prof. Frimpong Boateng. We went in and did a very thorough investigation, came out with our report, 160-page report, and the upshot is that he was not involved in any illegal mining concessions. He had genuine concessions, which he had difficulty even starting the processing of those concessions because of community violence against his companies.
I see. But did the petition, so you're just confirming that you cleared it, but did the petition mention anything about his son, his involvement, and what was the commission's conclusion on that one too?
That's part of the allegations. It will be helpful if we can make the report available so that you'll be more informed about the outcome.
In fact, we've been running through it all through since we started the program. So we have the details of it. We have a copy of your report on it. So you're saying, just for the benefit of emphasis, that after your investigations, this Symphony Limited belonging to Professor Frimpong Boateng, his wife, and now his son, were not involved in illegal mining?
As a matter of fact, that is the case. That was our finding.
I see. But with this, at least that's established, with this Nelson Roxin Dafiamekpo one, which has just come up, because of the report that has been leaked, Professor Frimpong Boateng's report, what process will this petition by Nelson Roxin Dafiamekpo go through?
The procedures of the commission require first that we would undertake an assessment of the complaint, because it's not every complaint that is filed that actually meets the standards expected of a complaint that can be admitted for investigation.
Mm-hmm.
So we will do the assessment. We will determine which of the mandates, if any, have been invoked by the petition.
Right.
After which, if there are any further and better particulars in terms of clarity of documents that will make us make up our minds, and we think so, we need them, we will require that of the lawyers or of the complainant. And then we will undertake a preliminary investigation before we will determine whether we are going to request the respondents mentioned in the petition and the attached reports to submit comments in respect of their allegations against them specifically.
I see. But would there be at any point a public hearing on this particular issue? So because of the public interest nature that this whole leak and has taken, would the commission consider at any point a public hearing?
No problem, no problem. It depends. See, we have different methods of investigation. We can undertake a panel hearing. You can do that. And that seems to be the interest of the complainant.
Okay.
But the point is that you can't do panel hearing of all aspects of the investigation. If I take you back to the Frimpong Boateng initial case, the one that we just completed, we had to go to the mining sites, and we had to interview over 26 people.
I see.
And then we had to go to the sites themselves to see the situation on the ground there. So you can't do a panel hearing of that. But we can do panel hearing of persons who can come and be interviewed publicly. And we can always invite the media to be present.
Okay. Well, we thank you very much, Mr. Joseph Votal, for your time on this. And so since you've given us the details of the process and the possibility of also a public hearing, we as a media would also do our best to keep our eyes on it and our viewers updated. Thank you. Joseph Vutal is Commissioner for the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, SHRAJ, confirming the details of what we have been going through over the last, 35 minutes? So you get to understand all that. How does this conclude, Dennis, finally, before we go?
Well, so the conclusion is, as we have summarized in there, with respect to almost all the matters, the fact that there was no mining in the area, that the petitioner in this case alleges that Prof did not direct a task force to go there because he was in charge of the Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining. The fact that Professor Frimpong Boateng was holding on to 5 concessions when he could have, when he could let the 3 out for others to also take on and then pay mineral rights to the government, for which he was alleging that the state was losing money. They also found out that he did not put himself in a position of conflict of interest by virtue of being the Minister of the Environment, Science, Technology, Science, Innovation and Technology, and that he couldn't have influenced the issuance of permits to Symphony Limited. So basically, that's what the report seeks to say. And that letter in circulation, it's only a part of a whole lot of things that have happened between 2019 and, yes, in 2019 or earlier, for which SHRAJ has been looking into the matter for the past 4 years or so.
Great stuff. Dennis, thank you so much for the details given to us. In fact, you can find all of this on TV3 Ghana on Facebook. Dennis Kwaberi Wedam is with the news planning team, research as well, getting into the details of the... There are so many aspects of this conversation and this particular report we'll be serializing in the coming days. Dennis, thank you. Coming up next, before we go, finally, the prime suspect in the murder of the 26-year-old Victoria Dapa, also known as Majwa at Edum Kumasi, has told an open court that it was not his intention to kill the lady, although he went to demand a refund of 5,000 cedis he had given to the deceased. Inspector Ahmed Chumesi, according to the judicial prosecutor, used his service pistol to commit the alleged crime. We have the details coming up shortly. William Evans Inkom will give us some more.
Inspector Ahmed Chumesi, the suspect now accused, appeared in the Asokore Mampong District Court with his hands cuffed in his own handcuff.
The courtroom was filled with a number of family members of the deceased, and intermittently they were sobbing. At a point in time, the police will have to restrain them, but they could not hold back their tears.
He was charged with murder, but Judicial Prosecutor ACP Kofi Blagoji hinted of more charges in the next hearing.
One thing that he told the court that was very striking, and I quote, "The IGP takes strong exception to barbaric acts and officers showing act of impunity." And he said that with so much sentiment that it kind of resonated in the open courtroom. He also assured the family of the deceased that the police will go every mile to ensure that justice is served them.
His departure was almost the same as his arrival.
A lot of reactions indeed, and as many of you who have been following this, let's go on to the telephone now. Justice Tankebe is a criminologist and a lecturer at Cambridge University, joining us on the telephone. Thank you so much, Mr. Tankebe, for your time. Now, we've seen this play out. There are concerns that there hasn't been enough premium, from what we are saying, put on the psychology of the servicemen, specifically the Ghana Police Service. I mean, with these continuous cases we've seen, what do you expect the hierarchy of the police to do while we are prosecuting the criminal aspect of things, the psychological aspect of it as well?
The job, the work that the police do, it can be a highly stressful job. And we have done we did a study a couple of years ago, and a significant proportion of the officers that we were able to administer questionnaires to indicated that they needed psychological support of some sort. I think it was about 2/3 of them did express this need, because they also indicated that especially this was during the COVID period, they also indicated that they had sleeping problems and experienced some depression. So it's an important issue that any police force needs to take seriously, not least because, of course, it's an obligation that a police service owes its officers, but also at the purely instrumental level, it's also an issue that affects the quality of their performance. So yeah, it's an issue that deserves attention.
In fact, Mr. Takeme, before we go, the last time we checked, and we have the records here, there isn't as many psychologists as the police would need or as required per the international standards. With this continuous, cases of these human rights abuse and what we've seen, some of it resulting in the murder of some innocent persons, we've seen the police in other areas as well open fire where they are not supposed to. What measures have to be put in place, even during the recruitment process, to establish the psychology or the psychological framework of the police officers, and then while they are even serving, also having continuous psychological check or treatment?
I think at one level, maybe we need some kind of, look, if you have a police force even of the size that we have, about, I don't know, just over 40,000 or so police officers engaged in various tasks that are associated with various degrees of seriousness of mental health, and you haven't got enough psychologists around, then there will be some need for targeting, for identifying which roles are associated with which types of mental health of what seriousness, in order to target your limited resources in a way that you can make maximum impact. So the starting point is just trying to diagnose the problem, as it were, find out which officers in which roles experience what level of seriousness of mental health, and to be able to target resources that way, even as you try to recruit try to recruit psychologists who might be able to help. And another thing to say is that it is not often just the case of having these support systems available. One also needs to take into account how they are delivered. So when we did this study I mentioned earlier, we found that the majority of the officers preferred telephone or online platforms.
Right.
For example, WhatsApp video calls and so forth, rather than, if you like, walking into a local station or to an office for this kind of support. And you can imagine why that happens. One reason, of course, is the stigma around mental health, especially with police officers. This notion of, if you like, you're supposed to, it's a masculine profession, as it were, and being able to demonstrate strength and so forth. So being seen to be consulting a psychologist for support regarding mental health can carry its own stigma. And of course, a number of psychologists in Ghana have already raised this issue as it pertains to the general population. And I think it's probably more so with police officers. So one needs to think carefully about what strategies might help in dealing with the stigma, and also providing support that is, as it were, evidence-based in order to ensure that officers do take advantage of whatever support mechanisms that you have or interventions you have.
Okay, very important point that you make there, and I thank you so much. Dr. Justice Tankebe is a criminologist and also a lecturer at the University of Cambridge. Appreciate your time. Tomorrow, we have another big one. Today, we've given you the exclusive detail of this Shraj report on Professor Kobna Frimpong Boateng and the report of his alleged involvement in illegal mining, which the report of Shraj, we've given details, cleared him. Tomorrow, we have an exclusive detail. Make a date with us on the names of some of the companies who were giving their mining licenses to mine in the forest reserves across the country between 2018 and 2020. Make a date here on Ghana Tonight. On behalf of the rest of the team, I appreciate your company. I'm Alfred Ocansey. Have a good night.
Ghana Tonight is brought to you by Flamingo Paint. Superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior. This program is rated PG. It contains scenes of brief nudity, mild